let us assume then that a small territory within the borders of the current United States, a village or a town or a county, declares its independence and secedes from the United States. What can and will the United States do in response to this? Now, it is certainly possible that the United States will invade the territory and crush the secessionists. This is what the French Republic did to the Vendée during the French Revolution. This is what the Union did to the Confederacy, and on a much smaller scale, this is what the United States government did in Waco. But history also provides examples to the contrary. The Czechs and the Slovaks separated peacefully. Russia let Lithuania, Estonia and Latvia go. The Slovenes were let go by Yugoslavia at that time. Singapore was often even expelled from previous union with Malaysia. Now obviously the relative population size matters in the decision to war or not to war. Likewise, it matters what resources are at the secessionists' disposal. Also, the geographical location can weigh in favor or against intervention. But this cannot be all. For how is one to explain, for instance, that France has not long ago conquered Monaco, or Germany Luxembourg, or Switzerland Liechtenstein, or Italy the Vatican City, or the United States Costa Rica? Or how is one to explain that the United States does not finish the job in Iraq by simply killing all Iraqis? Surely in terms of population, technology and geography, such are manageable tasks. Now the reason is not that French, German, Swiss, Italian or United States state rulers have scruples against conquest, confiscation and the imprisonment or killing of innocents. They do these things all the time on a daily basis to their own population. Bush, for instance, has no compunction ordering to kill innocent Iraqis. He does so every day. Rather, what constrains the conduct of state rulers is public opinion. As La Boétie, Hume, Mises, Rothbard have explained, government power ultimately rests on opinion and not on brute force. Bush does not kill himself or put a gun to the head of those he orders to kill. Generals and soldiers follow his orders on their own. Nor can Bush force anyone to continue providing him with the funds needed for his aggression. The citizenry must do so on its own. On the other hand, if the majority of generals, soldiers and citizens stop believing in the legitimacy of Bush's command, his commands turn into nothing more than hot air. It is this need for legitimacy that explains why state governments itching to go to war must offer a reason. The public is not typically in favor of killing innocent bystanders for fun and profit. Rather, in order to enlist the public's assistance, evidence must be manipulated so as to make aggression appear as defense. For what reasonable person could be against defense? Now, and we know, of course, the catchwords in all of this. There are Fort Sumter, the USS Maine, the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, and 9/11. It thus turns out that not even an overwhelming size advantage is decisive in determining the course of action. That David Koresh and his followers in Waco could be brutally killed by the United States government was due to the fact that they could be portrayed as a bunch of crazy child molesters. Had there been normal people, an invasion might have been considered a public relations disaster. Moreover, regardless of whatever disadvantage that the secessionists have in terms of size, resources or location, this can all be made up by a favorable international public opinion, especially in the internet age when the spread of news is almost instantaneous. Now these considerations then bring me to my final points. The new secessionist country can be either another state or it can be a free, stateless society. And I want to argue that the likelihood of successful defense against the United States is higher if the secessionists form a stateless society than if they opt for another smaller state. For whether large or small, states are always good at aggression, but always bad at defense. As a side remark, granting, maybe prematurely, that the United States had nothing to do with 9/11 directly, the events of that day certainly show that the United States was not good at defending its own citizens, first by provoking the attacks, and secondly in having its population disarmed and defenseless vis-à-vis box-cutting wielding foreign invaders. Now, how would the defense of a free society differ from that of a state? As I explained, the likelihood of an attack depends essentially on the ease of manipulating the evidence so as to camouflage aggression as defense. And to discover such evidence is much easier in the case of a state. Even the most liberal state has a monopoly of jurisdiction and taxation, and thus cannot but create victims who can be properly stylized as victims of human rights violations and thereby then provide an excuse for an invasion. Worse, if the new state is a democracy, it is unavoidable that one group, the Catholics or the Protestants, the Shiites or the Sunnis, the whites or the blacks, will use its power to dominate another, and again there exists then an excuse for invasion, namely to free the oppressed minority. Better still, the oppressed are incited to cry out for help. Moreover, in reaction to domestic oppression, terrorists may grow up who try to revenge the injustice. Just think of the Red Brigades, the RAF, the IRA, the ETA in Basque Country, and both the continued existence as well as the attempt of eradicating these terrorist organizations may provide reason to intervene, namely, on the one hand, to prevent the spread of terrorism, or on the other hand, to come to the rescue of freedom fighters. In contrast, in a free society, only private property owners and firms, including insurers, police and arbitration agencies exist, and if there are any aggressions, they are those of criminals, of murderers, rapists, burglars, and plain frauds, and it is very difficult to portray the treatment of criminals as a reason for an invasion. Now, what if an attack does occur after all? In that case, it might well be best to give up quickly, especially if the secessionist territory is very small. Thus, Mogens Glistrup, the founder of the Danish Progress Party, he once recommended that the Defense Department of teeny Denmark be replaced with an answering machine announcing, at that time to the Russians, that we surrender. This way, no destruction would occur, and yet the reputation of the invading government as a defender and promoter of liberty would be soiled forever.